Mrs. Whitmore, for God's sake, stop. That is not a contract. That is a suicide note for your company. The voice thundered through the silence of the 40th floor boardroom at Whitmore Global in Manhattan, New York. Every head snapped around, not toward a lawyer or a rival executive, but toward the man in the faded blue janitor's uniform, a glass cleaner still clutched in his hand. Michael Harrington. Claire Whitmore froze. Her Mont Blanc pen hovered just a millimeter above the signature line. Her slate-gray eyes locked onto the gaunt janitor, whose own eyes held no trace of fear, only the terrifying certainty of truth. Across the table, the three Danish representatives stiffened. Frederick Jorgensen, the silver-haired and handsome negotiator, gave a short laugh. "Excuse me, is this some sort of American joke?" Then he turned to Claire, his smile strained. "Claire, this is highly inappropriate. I insist you have this man removed immediately." His colleagues muttered in Danish, mocking the madman who had interrupted. They assumed no one could understand. Claire did not look at them. She did not blink. The entire room held its breath in a heavy silence. Anyone else would have called security. But Claire Whitmore had not built her empire on ordinary instincts. In the janitor's eyes, she saw something that chilled her to the bone. Unvarnished truth. She set her pen down, the sharp click like a gunshot. "This meeting is suspended. My team will see you to your cars. Tomorrow, we will discuss how to proceed." The doors opened. Security entered. The Danes left in outrage, leaving behind a single janitor who had just dropped a bomb in the center of their world. As the lights of New York City blazed outside the windows of City General Hospital, Michael Harrington hurried down the cold, sterile hallway of the pediatric ward. The faded blue janitor's uniform he wore still carried the sharp scent of cleaning chemicals. Only minutes earlier, he had stood on the 40th floor of Whitmore Global, recklessly challenging a multi-billion-dollar merger. Now, the only thing on his mind was the door to room 308. Inside, Sophia Harrington, his frail 7-year-old daughter in a hospital gown, sat with a sketchbook resting on her knees. Felines, heart monitors, and the steady beeping of machines were the backdrop both father and daughter had grown used to. Michael quietly sat beside her, his calloused hand brushing gently over her thinning hair. "What are you drawing tonight, Firefly?" he asked, his voice hoarse from a long day. Sophia looked up, her wide eyes shining with an unsettling clarity. But instead of answering, she whispered, "Daddy, am I going to become an angel soon?" The words cut through Michael's chest like a blade. He froze, his lungs tight, but forced a smile as he clasped her small hand. "No, sweetheart, you're not going anywhere. And if angels are real, they speak the language of love, and you've been fluent in it for a long time." Sophia gave a faint smile, then leaned wearily against his shoulder. In that moment, Michael knew exactly why he had done the unthinkable in that boardroom. He wasn't saving a company, nor fighting to be recognized. He was fighting for one reason only: to hold on to hope for his only daughter. That night, Michael sat in silence by her bedside, watching every fragile rise and fall of her breath. In his pocket, his phone suddenly buzzed with an unknown number. The screen displayed a single message. "Mr. Harrington, CEO, Claire Whitmore requests to see you at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Do not be late." Michael gripped the phone tightly, fear and hope colliding in his chest. He didn't know if tomorrow would bring unemployment, prosecution, or the chance to change everything. But he knew one thing. Whatever the cost, he would not back down. Because behind him stood Sophia. Dawn still clung to New York when Michael Harrington stepped off the city bus, standing before the towering glass fortress of Whitmore Global. He wore a faded gray Henley and worn-out jeans. No janitor's uniform this time, no protective armor to hide behind, leaving him exposed against the gleaming marble walls. The security guard eyed him with suspicion, but when Michael gave his name, the man's eyes widened slightly. "They're expecting you. 40th floor." The elevator shot upward, Michael's heart pounding with each passing second. When the doors opened, a severe woman in a black suit was waiting. No introductions, only a curt command. "Follow me." Claire Whitmore's office was less an office than a private kingdom. A floor-to-ceiling glass wall revealed the entire Manhattan skyline at sunrise. In the center sat a sleek black ebony desk, spotless save for a single laptop and a leather-bound folder. Claire stood with her back to the window, coffee cup in hand, dressed in a razor-sharp navy power suit. Beside the desk sat Peters, her chief counsel, pale and hollow-eyed from lack of sleep. When Michael entered, Claire turned, her cold slate eyes locking onto him. "Mr. Harrington, thank you for coming," she said. But it wasn't gratitude, it was an order. She gestured to the chair opposite. Michael sat, spine rigid. Claire cut straight to the point. "Last night, you derailed a $10 billion merger, based on a conversation you claim to have overheard in Danish." Her eyes narrowed. "You speak Danish?" Michael drew in a breath, his voice rough. "I understood what they said. About the clause on page 88, the Trojan horse. 6 months after the merger, they'd seize control of your entire patent portfolio." Peters jolted, fumbling through his copy of the contract, hands shaking. "Claire, this is entirely possible. The language in the addendum is deliberately vague. Yes, it could absolutely function as a takeover mechanism." Claire's eyes never left Michael. Her expression flickered, then hardened again. "Then who are you really? A janitor doesn't grasp transnational intellectual property law this deeply." She snatched the folder from her security aide, scanning quickly. Her eyes widened slightly, her grip tightening on the leather cover. "Michael Harrington, Ph.D. in Linguistics, Northwood University. Youngest professor ever tenured. Published widely on Scandinavian language systems. And then, 8 years ago, you vanished. And now I find you, with a mop in your hand." The room fell silent. Michael swallowed hard, gaze drifting past her to the skyline, where the sun was climbing over towers of steel. "My daughter is sick," he said, voice breaking. "The hospital requires full insurance coverage. This job gave me that. The night shift meant I could be with her during the day. I needed to disappear. And Whitmore Global let me do that." Claire said nothing. Her eyes no longer held suspicion, but calculation. Before her stood not just a janitor, but a strange kind of asset. A broken genius who had just saved her empire with a single sentence. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her expression darkening. "Frederick Jorgensen has gone to the press. He's painting us as unstable, even xenophobic. Our stock is down 4% this morning. The board is furious. They want me to fold." She slid a contract across the desk toward Michael, her voice sharp and final. "You will work for me for 2 weeks. Exclusive consultant. Full access to all documents. Compensation, $200,000. And every cent of Sophia's treatment will be covered by my company. No limits." Michael stared at the paper, his hand trembling. In his mind, he saw Sophia's face, her fragile voice whispering, "Daddy, am I going to be an angel soon?" The Mont Blanc pen rolled toward him. Michael picked it up. His hands, calloused from mop handles and spray bottles, felt the alien weight of polished silver. He inhaled deeply, then signed, "Dr. Michael Harrington." Claire gave a small nod, eyes glinting. Good. Now prove to me you're more than a ghost. The sealed room on the 42nd floor of Whitmore Global looked more like a bunker than an office. 4 white walls, no windows, only rows of computer screens, a whiteboard, and a long table buried under stacks of documents. To Michael Harrington, it felt both like a prison and a battlefield. Clara Reynolds locked the door, leaving Michael alone with the mountain of files. You have full access, but you are not to leave this floor without Ms. Whitmore's clearance, she said, her voice devoid of expression. If you need anything, press the buzzer. Good luck, Mr. Harrington. Michael took a deep breath and turned to face the sea of data. The mind of a linguist he had buried for 8 long years began to stir again. He ignored the English translations, the legal summaries. Instead, he dove straight into the original Danish texts. Every sentence structure, every adjective, every blend of archaic phrasing with modern slang, each exposed the fingerprint of a single hand. The deeper he read, the more anger surged within him. This wasn't some accidental loophole. It was a linguistic fingerprint, the arrogance of one man, Frederick Jorgensen, so certain no one could expose him. By noon, the whiteboard was covered with phrases, arrows, and tangled connections. Sweat dotted Michael's forehead, the coffee beside him long gone cold. Then he stopped, frozen by a line in an email chain dated 3 months earlier. Det vores Amsterdam gang, de Werker Vergang. Don't worry, this is our Amsterdam model. It works every time. Michael's blood ran cold. The Amsterdam model. This wasn't the first time. This was a strategy, a playbook they had used before. He snatched up the phone, urgently calling Claire Whitmore. Report! Claire's voice was icy. This isn't just a clause, Claire, Michael said, steady but intense. It's a formula. They've used it elsewhere. I'm certain Jorgensen pulled the same trick with other European companies. Silence. Then Claire's voice, lower now. 2 years ago, a Dutch tech firm, Van der Elde, collapsed 6 months after a merger. No one ever understood why. It was a massacre. Don't tell me. Yes, Michael cut in, eyes blazing. Jorgensen was behind it. This isn't coincidence. It's a recurring script. Claire was silent for a beat. Then her tone hardened into steel. Find me a direct link. I can't go to the board with a linguistic metaphor. I need a weapon sharp enough to bury him. The line went dead. Michael leaned back, exhausted, but his eyes burned with determination. He knew he had re-entered the world of language as weapon, the very world that had once destroyed him. But this time, he wasn't fighting for a career. He was fighting for Sophia. He worked relentlessly, scanning each line of text. But then, the clock struck 8 p.m. His stomach sank. He had missed visiting hours. Sophia would be waiting for her bedtime story. Michael grabbed his phone, only to remember he couldn't call directly from inside. Pain tightened his chest. He pressed the intercom. I need to go to the hospital. My daughter. A long pause. Then Clara's voice, softer than before. You have 2 hours. A car is waiting in the basement. Don't make me come looking for you. Michael nearly sprinted to the waiting car. When he opened the door to room 308, Sophia's weak smile lit up the dim space. Daddy, you finally came. I thought you forgot me. He pulled her into his arms, guilt crushing his chest. Never, Firefly. I'll always come. The little girl blinked up at him, her voice small. Do you like your new job? Michael thought of the sterile bunker, Jorgensen's poisonous words hidden in contracts, and the $200,000 agreement weighing on his shoulders. He forced a smile, hiding the ache in his heart. "It's the most important job in the world, sweetheart, because it's going to make you better." Sophia nestled into him, her eyes fluttering closed. Michael sat motionless by her side until visiting hours ended. On the ride back, one truth echoed in his chest. He was no longer just a ghost with a mop. He had stepped back onto the battlefield of language, and this time, the enemy was deadlier than ever. 3 days passed, and Michael Harrington practically lived inside the sterile white room of Whitmore Global. He slept on a folding cot, showered quickly in the executive gym, survived on black coffee, and on the cold fury burning in his chest. On the whiteboard, dozens of Danish phrases connected by red lines formed a map of a multinational conspiracy. At last, a clue emerged, an old email between Frederick Jorgensen and his Copenhagen lawyer, referencing the Amsterdam model and a man named Peter Vandermeer. Michael froze. That name had surfaced once before, in a small financial podcast interview from the Netherlands, and the man had used the exact same archaic Danish idiom Jorgensen had. This couldn't be coincidence. He reported the finding to Claire Whitmore. She strode into the room, gripping a tablet tightly. Bad news. Whitmore Global's stock continued to fall, and the board was preparing to vote her out within 48 hours. "We need hard evidence now, Michael," Claire said, her voice tense. At that moment, the security line rang. Clara Reynolds answered, then turned back with a heavy expression. "We've found him. Vandermeer is no longer in Amsterdam. He's hiding under an alias in Portree, Isle of Skye, Scotland." Michael gripped the edge of the table, eyes flashing. "He's in hiding. That means he knows everything." Claire's cold gray gaze sharpened with resolve. "Pack your bags. We're going to Scotland." The private jet touched down on the damp little airstrip of the Isle of Skye in a steady rain. Michael sat motionless, weighed down by the strangeness of it all. Just a week ago, his only means of transport had been the city bus to City General Hospital. Now he was flying across the world on a hunt with a powerful CEO, while his daughter's life hung in the balance. Portree, a coastal village, appeared like a bleak painting. Gray painted houses pressed together along the harbor, waves crashing violently against the jagged rocks. Claire's people had tracked Vandermeer's habits. Every afternoon, he visited a shabby pub called the Salty Dog. 4:15 p.m. Michael stepped into the pub. The air reeked of stale beer and damp wood. In the corner sat a gray-haired man, his face bloated and worn, hunched over a glass of whiskey. This was Peter Vandermeer, once a brilliant CFO, now just a broken shadow of himself. Michael approached and slid into the booth across from him. He opened in Dutch. "Mr. Vandermeer." The man flinched, eyes darting nervously, then stammered under his false name. "You've got the wrong man. I'm Baker." Michael leaned closer, voice low. "Really? Then why did you once say, 'Vi blev let in I Leuven's hula bind for oinene'? We were led into the lion's den blindfolded." Peter froze. His hands shook. His face drained of color. In that instant, he understood. The man before him knew his secret. Just then, the pub door creaked open. Claire Whitmore walked in, radiating absolute authority, her navy suit strikingly out of place amid the dingy bar. She moved straight to their booth, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. "Mr. Vandermeer, I'm Claire Whitmore. Frederick Jorgensen tried to do to me exactly what he did to you. The only difference is, he failed. But to bring him down, I need you." Peter looked at her, then at Michael, fear etched deep in his eyes. "You don't understand. Jorgensen isn't just a businessman. He has people behind him. People who can wipe out my entire family in a single night. Michael pressed his palm against the table, voice like steel. You can hide forever and never be safe, or you can fight back. Peter's trembling hand raised the glass, draining the whiskey in one rough gulp. His voice dropped to a whisper. The proof you want. It's not in a bank. It's buried. I created a private data vault in Zurich. All the original unredacted agreements, the unencrypted email servers, audio recordings of my calls with him. Everything you need to prove the fraud. But it requires 2 cryptographic keys entered simultaneously from different IP addresses. One of them I kept. The other I gave to the only person I trusted, Anna Schmidt. Claire's eyes narrowed. And where is she now? Peter's face darkened. I don't know. After the collapse, she disappeared. She could be running. She could already be dead. Outside, the sea wind howled against the stone walls. Inside that rundown pub, 3 people sat in silence, realizing they now held one key. But to bring down Frederick Jorgensen, they had to find Anna Schmidt before it was too late. The private jet from the Isle of Skye back to New Jersey was steeped in silence. Michael Harrington sat by the window, staring blankly at the dense gray clouds. His heart felt torn in two. On one side lay Sophia, quiet in her bed at City General Hospital. On the other, the ruthless power struggle he had been dragged into. Across from him, Claire Whitmore buried herself in a thick stack of files, her sharp gray eyes unblinking. She wasn't an ally, nor an enemy. She was a force, and Michael had no choice but to trust that force if he wanted to save his daughter. Claire suddenly looked up, her voice low. Vandermeer gave us half a key. But without finding Anna Schmidt, it's all just theory. The board has given me 48 hours. After that, either I'm removed or Jorgensen wins. Michael clenched his fists, determination burning in his eyes. We'll find her. When the plane touched down in New Jersey, Clara Reynolds was waiting, her face dark, tablet in hand. There's a problem, she said tensely. Claire snatched the device, scanning the screen. Bold red headlines from the Financial Chronicle glared back at her. Claire Whitmore bets her billion-dollar empire on the word of an uneducated janitor. Beneath it was an old photo of Michael Harrington at Northwood University, branded as a fraudulent professor stripped of his position. The article read like an indictment, twisting the truth of his resignation, where he had sacrificed himself to protect his mentor, into a narrative of theft and academic disgrace. Michael went numb. It felt as though his entire body fell into a void. 8 years of hiding, of being invisible, undone in an instant. Now the whole world was staring at him, seeing a con man. Claire's grip tightened on the tablet, her voice like ice. This is Jorgensen. He's not just targeting the company. He's targeting you. He wants to make you dead weight, so I can't rely on you. Michael's hands trembled. Who's going to believe me now? The board will laugh me out of the room. Claire was silent for a beat. Then her words cut like a blade. Exactly. Which is why you won't go into that room. You'll go back to being a ghost. I'll take the fire. You have only one mission. Find Anna Schmidt before my time runs out. In the war room on the 42nd floor, Michael got to work immediately. Clara and the IT team fed him every scrap of data connected to Anna. Old emails, server logs, internal chats from before Vandereld collapsed. But Michael wasn't searching for a name. He was searching for a linguistic fingerprint. He knew Anna had her own signature. Metaphors drawn from astronomy, and a consistent omission of the Oxford comma when listing 3 items. A quirk impossible to fake. Thousands of files scrolled past, Michael combed through them, his eyes burning. And then, there it was, a post on a tiny forum for Aurora chasers, written by a user named Signos X1. This camera is fantastic for shooting comet tails, meteor showers, and planetary alignments. But the user manual is a black hole of confusion. 3 items. No Oxford comma. A space metaphor. Michael sat upright. It's her. The account location. Yellowknife, Canada. While Michael chased the trail, his personal phone buzzed. It was Maria Torres, Sophia's nurse. Her voice was tight with worry. Michael, Sophia's condition is worsening. She has a high fever, possible infection. She's asking for you. She wants to hear your voice. Michael closed his eyes, his heart shattering. He pressed the phone to his ear. Tell her. Tell her Daddy loves her. Tell her I'm fighting a monster for her. I'll be there as soon as I can. He hung up, hands trembling, guilt crushing him. But time offered no mercy. His eyes locked on the screen. Yellowknife, the last hope. Meanwhile, on the 40th floor, the boardroom was a battlefield. Men in dark suits sat around the oak table, their eyes sharp and hostile. Arthur Pendleton rose, his voice ringing like a bell. Whitmore Global is bleeding by the minute. I move to remove CEO Claire Whitmore and accept Frederick Jorgensen's revised terms. Claire sat tall, her face a mask of calm, though her hands clenched beneath the table. The game was reaching its final move. If Michael failed, she would lose everything. In the war room, Michael stared at the lead that pointed straight to Anna Schmidt. He knew with searing clarity, to save Sophia, to save Claire, to bring down Jorgensen, he had to find her now. In the cold white room on the 42nd floor of Whitmore Global, Michael Harrington stared at the screen. Hundreds of files had been filtered out, leaving only a tiny but unmistakable trail. Metaphors about the sky, comparisons to comets, and the absence of the Oxford comma in lists. He held his breath. It was her, Anna Schmidt, the woman who once headed Vanderelde's IT department, the one who had created the Dead Vault in Zurich with Peter Vandermeer. If they could find her, they would have the second half of the key. Michael's hands trembled as he typed a short message on the Aurora Watching Forum, where Anna, under the alias Signos X1, was active. Last night, I saw. The aurora shattered like a green curtain. 3 streaks crossed the sky, but the instructions to capture them were nothing but a black hole. Minutes later, a reply appeared. Even black holes have an exit, if you know the coordinates. But saying too much here is dangerous. Michael leaned back, eyes blazing. It was her. That very night, Clara Reynolds arranged a secure video connection. On the screen appeared a woman in a thick parka, the Canadian sky behind her shimmering with ribbons of green aurora. Her hair was tangled, her eyes shadowed from years in hiding, yet they still shone with resilience. "Who are you?" Anna asked, her hoarse voice sharp. Michael looked straight into the camera, voice steady. "I'm Michael Harrington. I just came from Portree, Scotland, where I spoke with Peter Vandermeer. He said you hold the other half of the key." Anna bit her lip, her eyes flashing with alarm. "Vandermeer is still alive? God, I thought Jorgensen had him erased long ago." Michael nodded. "He gave us his half. But without you, the Zurich vault will never open. Without it, the world will see Claire Whitmore as a failure, and Jorgensen will swallow this company whole." Anna fell silent, her eyes dropping as if wrestling with old fears. At last, she reached inside her coat and pulled out a USB drive hanging from a chain around her neck. Time had worn its edges, but Michael knew instantly. This was the missing key. I've kept it for 2 years, Anna whispered. But I never dared use it. Jorgensen threatened my sister. I ran to Yellowknife because it was the farthest place to hide. But hiding doesn't save anyone forever. Meanwhile, on the 40th floor of Whitmore Global, Arthur Pendleton rose before the board of directors. Behind him, a screen displayed headline after headline. CEO Claire Whitmore gambles her company on the word of an uneducated janitor. Pendleton's voice rang with grim authority. You've all seen it. Stock prices are in free fall. Partners are walking away. It's time we choose stability. Accept Frederick Jorgensen's terms and replace the CEO. Hands began to rise. Claire sat perfectly still, her face a mask of ice, but her hands beneath the table clenched until her knuckles turned white. She knew she had only minutes left before her power slipped away. In the war room, Michael opened the Zurich Vault's secure portal. An endless string of code appeared, demanding 2 keys entered simultaneously from 2 different IP addresses. It's time, he said to Anna. On the screen, Anna nodded, clutching the USB. 3, 2, 1. Michael entered Vandermeer's code at the exact moment Anna plugged in her drive. Both hit enter. A deathly silence. Then the screen flashed, a soft chime rang out, and folders burst open. Original contracts, audio recordings, encrypted emails. Michael immediately called Clara. Stream this to the boardroom. Now! In the boardroom, as Pendleton prepared to declare the vote, the giant screen suddenly flickered to life. An audio recording filled the room, the cold, unmistakable voice of Frederick Jorgensen. That board is full of old fools, Peter. If you hesitate, I can't guarantee your son makes it home safely from class. Accidents happen. Peter Vandermeer's trembling reply followed. Please, stop. I'll do as you say. The room erupted. Board members whispered in shock and horror. Pendleton's face went pale, his voice breaking. This is fabricated. But Claire Whitmore rose, her eyes blazing like steel. This is the evidence, a criminal conspiracy. Whitmore Global will never bow to corruption, and I will lead this company through this fight. The boardroom fell into dead silence. Not a single hand dared remain raised against her. Back in the war room, Michael collapsed into his chair, gasping for breath. On the table lay the photo of Sophia, smiling innocently. He stared into her eyes and whispered, Daddy did it, Firefly. I kept my promise. News of the leaked recordings spread like wildfire. The next morning, the front page of the New York Times and dozens of major television networks blared the same headline. Frederick Jorgensen accused of illegal takeover scheme, threatening families of executives. The stock market reeled. Jorgensen Group's shares plummeted without breaks. But Michael knew someone like Jorgensen would never sit idle and watch his empire collapse. In the 40th floor office of Whitmore Global, Claire Whitmore stood by the window, looking out over the glowing city of New York. Beside her was Michael, still in his faded gray Henley, his eyes ringed with exhaustion after countless sleepless nights. Jorgensen's been disgraced in the media, Claire said firmly, but he still has hidden pieces, politicians, lawyers, shadow banks. If he drags them in, both you and I will be crushed. Michael nodded. We have to strip him of every support, and I think Vandermeer knows the rest. Clara Reynolds entered, placing an envelope on the desk. News from Scotland. Vandermeer is ready to cooperate officially with the FBI and Interpol. He's signed a witness statement. Claire allowed herself the faintest smirk. Then we have a living witness. The next day, at the European Union headquarters in Brussels, Claire's team of lawyers and investigators presented the Zurich data. Anna Schmidt appeared via live video from Yellowknife. revealing her true face publicly for the first time in 2 years of hiding. Global media erupted. Fake contracts, encrypted emails, threatening audio recordings, all pointed to one name: Fredrik Jorgensen. Michael followed the coverage from room 308 of City General Hospital. Beside him, Sophia slept after a fever, her tiny hand clutching his. On the TV screen, Claire stepped out of the Brussels press conference, camera flashes exploding like a blizzard. Michael felt as if a giant stone had been lifted from his chest. But then Clara called, her voice taut. "Michael, Jorgensen's trying to flee." We traced his private jet taking off from Copenhagen. Destination unknown. Michael's grip tightened around the phone, anger blazing in his eyes. He won't get away. From Brussels, Claire gave the order with icy finality. "Stop him!" "I don't want a victory on paper. I want him to bow before justice." Interpol moved instantly. At Zurich Airport, as the gleaming Gulf Stream touched down, special forces surrounded it. Fredrik Jorgensen descended the stairs, forcing a cold smile. But when the handcuffs locked around his wrists and the camera flashes ignited, that smile dissolved into pure, desperate fury. 2 days later, back in New York, the Whitmore Global Board reconvened. No more threats. No more Pendleton cornering. Instead, they listened as Claire reported the victory, and their eyes turned toward Michael, the man once dismissed as a nameless janitor, now seen as a quiet hero. After the meeting, Claire visited Michael at the hospital. She placed a platinum card on the table beside Sophia's bed. "From now on, every medical expense for your daughter will be covered by Whitmore Global. No limits. This is my personal pledge." Michael was speechless, his throat tight. He only nodded, eyes glistening. Sophia stirred, offering a weak smile. "Daddy, did you beat the monster?" Michael kissed her forehead gently. "Yes, Firefly. I beat it. We won." 6 months later, in a newly built wing of Whitmore Global Headquarters, a gleaming brass plaque read, "The Listening Room, Department of Strategic Integrity." Michael stood by the glass wall, gazing out at New York, bathed in morning sunlight. Beside him was Sophia, radiant in a bright yellow coat, her smile glowing after months of treatment. Doctors had just confirmed her illness had entered clear remission thanks to a new therapy. Claire entered, her voice softer than he had ever heard. "You didn't just save this company, Michael. You showed us something greater. Sometimes the true value lies in the people no one pays attention to. From today, this is your creation. Lead it." Michael turned, eyes filled with peace and resolve. He squeezed Sophia's small hand and whispered, "The only language we need to learn now, Firefly, is love. And you've been fluent in it all along." Spring sunlight flooded New York with warmth. On the top floor of Whitmore Global, the new office, known as the Listening Room, buzzed with activity, clattering keyboards, lively debates, and fresh ideas from young, overlooked employees. None of them were glamorous lawyers or high-profile CEOs, but people once dismissed by the system: typists, anonymous assistants, even janitors. Michael Harrington believed that sometimes the truth hides within the quiet voices no one listens to. And now, the listening room existed to hear those voices. At City General Hospital, Sophia Harrington wore her bright yellow coat, clutching the battered sketchbook she never let go of. The doctor smiled as he delivered the news. "All her latest results are normal. Sophia's body is responding beautifully to the new therapy. She's recovering." Michael pulled his daughter into his arms, tears clouding his vision. "See, Firefly? We made it through." Sophia looked up, her smile as radiant as spring sunshine. "Daddy." So which language do we learn next? Michael kissed her hair and whispered, steady and certain, the language of love. And you've been fluent for a very long time. One evening, Claire Whitmore visited their new Upper West Side apartment. Gone was the sharp power suit. Instead, she wore a simple sweater, carrying a gift box. Inside was a small telescope. "Sophia," Claire said softly, "I know you love the stars. I hope this helps you discover an entire new universe." The little girl squealed with joy, leaping into Claire's arms. For the briefest moment, the most powerful woman in New York trembled, because the innocence of a child held more power than any billion-dollar deal she had ever signed. Meanwhile, in Copenhagen, images of Frederick Jorgensen being escorted into the international court spread across every news outlet. His empire had collapsed, assets frozen, allies fleeing. The once arrogant face was now hollow, consumed by rage and emptiness. Back in New York, Michael no longer cared. The monster was caged. What mattered was that Sophia was smiling in his arms. Half a year later, as sunset painted Central Park crimson, Michael sat on a wooden bench with Sophia resting on his shoulder, sketchbook open across her knees, capturing the glowing sky. "Daddy," she whispered, "people call you a hero, but to me you're just Dad." Michael held her tight, tears spilling from pure joy. "And that's enough to change the whole world, Firefly." Their story soon became a legend. People called him the janitor linguist, the man who stopped a multi-billion-dollar merger with a single sentence. But Michael never cared for titles. What he held onto was simpler: a room where every voice was heard, and a daughter who once asked if she would become an angel, now laughing beneath the open sky. As the city lights flickered on, Michael looked upward and whispered, "The only language worth keeping is the language of love, and we'll speak it for the rest of our lives." And that is the story of Michael Harrington, a single father who seemed invisible, yet with one sentence stopped a $10 billion deal and toppled a greedy empire. More importantly, he did it all for one reason: the love for his daughter. A love powerful enough to change the world. This story reminds us that true heroes don't always wear armor or wield swords. They may be a father, a mother, a friend, willing to sacrifice everything to protect the ones they love. If this story touched you, let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? And how would you rate this story on a scale of 1 to 10? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story here on True Tale Time. And always remember, be kind, be brave, and never underestimate the power of someone who seems small.